So hopefully you can see my screen, and now I will try to hide also. Yeah, now I think it's perfect. So thanks for the invitation. As Cordula mentioned, I'm Giorgos Koukoufikis. I work for the Joint Research Center of the European Commission on the energy transition side, working on just transitions for the unit that deals with, that provides insights for policy on the domain. Just briefly, for those that don't know us, we are one of the oldest departments in the European institutions. We provide evidence-based knowledge and science services to the Commission, and we are located in different parts of Europe. Personally, myself, I'm in Petten, in the Netherlands, up here, and we have more than 2,000 researchers working on various domains. I've started working on very briefly on tourism in the context of the pandemic, and that's because well, tourism is an important industry for the EU. We have more than 2 million businesses in the sector, mainly small, medium-sized. There are more than 12 people directly employed in tourism. Around 4% of the union's GDP comes from tourist industries and activities, and that is without taking into account spillover effects, which raises the importance of the sector to 10% approximately. But of course, as we all know, there's a very high carbon footprint for tourism activities. The order of magnitude can be around 5 to 10% of global emissions, depends on who calculates it and how. The effort to promote green and sustainable tourism is part of the EU's commitments and part of the European Green Deal strategy. So one of the new industrial strategies that wants to promote the transition pathway on tourism, it is on tourism, and there is an effort to create better policy and actions to improve the resilience of the EU tourism sector and make it much more sustainable and environmentally friendly. At the same time, the Commission has the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative, which is basically an effort to provide a platform so local authorities to create strategies and actions for the inhabited European islands to become energy self-sufficient in the long term. So back to the study that I want to present to you today. When COVID came, we identified an opportunity to measure or try to measure the actual impact of electricity, of energy consumption in terms of electricity, of tourism in specific touristic island destinations, because it was the only period where we basically didn't have, due to the COVID restriction measures, we didn't have tourism, or at least to the extent of the other years, the amount of tourism in the specific destinations. So we conducted an analysis and we developed a methodology to assess what is the impact, let's say, of tourism in terms of electricity demand in specific destinations. We chose 9 islands in our island groups, let's say, in 6 EU member states, in 3 marine regions, in the Baltic Sea, Mediterranean, and the Atlantic. So we have various climatic conditions and tourism patterns, let's say, taking into consideration. And what we did, basically, we examined the stringency and mobility index, which provide a proxy in terms of the impact of the pandemic and the associated restrictions on the mobility of people. The stringency index is a composite measure of 9 metrics, where they calculate school closures, workplace closures, the cancellation of public events, closures on public transport, etc., etc. So the measures related to the pandemic. and the higher it is, it means the stricter response, let's say. So here you can see in the case of the Balearic Islands with the dates, how this index was going up and down depending on week and month, let's say, of how the measures were changing. And after that, we also try to understand, or via the data, what's the electricity consumption and the actual consumption of these destinations. So we can see the impact of the restrictions in the energy sector, specifically in the years 2020 and 2021. It's more visible, the difference between what was expected, the predicted consumption based on the previous year, and what was actually the consumption, which of course we can see, we can expect that this consumption change is due to less touristic arrivals. To explore this link stronger, the link between tourism and energy users, we used a proxy. We used the Eurocontrol airport traffic data as an indicator for touristic presence in the islands. We can see that for the majority of tourist destinations, the seasonal increase in airport arrivals happens usually during summer months because of the increase in tourist movement. So the patterns regarding the relationship between electricity consumption and tourism are the same. As you can see, between 2016 and 2019, when the electricity consumption rises in the months where the airport arrivals rise as well. And for the years of the pandemic, you can see that there is a drop on electricity demand when, of course, less touristic activity is present. Of course, this is logical, but we had this opportunity to, for the first time, to see the order of magnitude of this. And that was the main reason we wanted to conduct the study. And going into the rest of the case study, we examined the maximum impact of the pandemic on electricity consumption, considering the contribution of tourism to the local GDP. And you can see, for example, here, we indicate the month where the maximum decrease in energy consumption occurred. In most cases, it was June or April for different destinations. And overall, the data show that among the selected regions, the most impacted were the islands that had a higher dependence on tourism. So you can see in Rhodos, in Greece, we had a 60% drop of electricity demand for June 2020. And Rhodos is also the island that has the highest dependence on GDP. So there's a clear link between electricity demand and tourism. And as you can see, either bigger islands like Sicily or Sardinia, or islands that don't depend so much on tourism and have more diverse economies, the electricity demand decrease was much, much lower. That can be confirmed also from another proxy besides air traffic data. So when we used overnight stays, to see if the trend is being confirmed, we observe the identical trends. So again, it seems that where touristic activity represents an important part of the regional GDP, the electricity consumption rises as the number of overnight stays increases. So that was pretty much our work in terms of the COVID-19 impact on touristic destinations and EU islands. You can see more on our report. I'm sure we will share with you the link. But now I want to go into another study that we've done a few years ago with the same group. And we discussed with Dirk and Kodrula that might be important for you to have a grasp. So basically, we've worked on Ionian Islands in Greece, where we performed an integrated analysis of the renewable energy potential with aim to mainly see the level of investment capacity and energy self-sufficiency those islands can reach, and its feasibility under different deployment scenarios, and the differences between a business as usual deployment of renewable energy or a community-based deployment. So we ran a socioeconomic analysis, assessments of electricity systems, analyzed policy, regulation. We created forecast models for the electricity system, different renewable energy system deployment scenarios on wind, based on wind and solar. And we had also developed a survey tool for assessing the community's involvement potential. And for example, for Corfu, one of the biggest Greek islands and part of that study, what was our findings, let's say. Basically, in Corfu, which is an interconnected island in terms of electricity with the mainland, and in Corfu there is a very low penetration of renewables at the moment, less than 4%. What we observed is that in 2019 prices, the island pays total cost of around 62 million euros to support its electricity needs. You can see the sectoral breakdown, mostly it's residential and commercial, which includes, of course, the touristic sector. In one of our scenarios that we developed for Corfu, we forecasted the demand for 2030 with a renewable coverage of 64%, which is part of the Greek national target. And we estimated the total installation cost for moving towards 65% of this demand with solar and 35% with wind. And we estimated also the total required area, which is around 2 square kilometers for the renewable installations. And then we also estimated the community's interest to participate in such a potential deployment scenario, and calculated the willingness to invest. On that, we see that around 25 million euros could be directly sourced from citizens and small enterprises that would be willing to participate in energy community projects that will become the vehicle of deploying this renewable capacity. What we've seen basically is that a large part of this investment can come and should come from internal capital from citizens directly. What we also seen in our survey was that citizens are willing to invest, but they want support from local governments and guidance. And what we also seen is that basically in an island which can be considered a closed system economic wise, there is a big extraction of economic capital going out because they need to satisfy the energy needs of the island, while via renewable energy projects that are locally funded, this economic, let's say, extraction will stop. And in the case of Corfu, as you can see, in 6 to 7 years, let's say, the island could pay back the total installation costs for the 100% renewable capacity. So it's in terms of economics, it makes sense, and that's what my main point basically is. Summing up, basically, I want to go back to the first part of my presentation. So basically, when it comes to the tourism impact on energy, we identified that there is a very, very strong link between touristic arrivals and energy consumption. And that is greater when there is more dependence on tourism. So this means that when we speak about deployment of renewable energy solutions in islands, touristic arrivals should be part of the equation on the design of the system, and mainly the design of storage of energy, because the fluctuation of demand will be largely based not only on weather conditions, but also on the amount of tourism that are in the island. And when it comes to the second part of the presentation that showed basically a case study on deployment of renewable energy solutions based on community investments, what I would like to communicate is that there is a strong evidence that with solid governance at local level and locally sourced capital, there can be a lot of solutions that can help islands to move fast towards self-sufficiency at the end of the day, that will make both the energy security to rise and also contribute to economic well-being, since a lot of this capital will not be extracted, but will remain within the local economic system. Thank you for your attention. You have my email, and of course you can check our websites and communication tools to keep in touch with us.